the events of the Mantova Architettura 2021, organized by the campus of Mantova, of the Politecnico di Milano. The host of this meeting is Nuno Graça Moura, a Portuguese architect from Porto, who began his career collaborating with Soto de Moura Studio and Cisaviera Studio 2. And after he opened his own professional studio in continuity with his work activity. So for some years, he has been involved in the study of the architectural work of Eduardo Soto de Moura. Recently, he created the design together with Francesco Dalcò of the exhibition named Soto Moura Memory Project Works, and created also its catalog. In Nuno Graça Moura way of working, they can be identified two main topics or methods that perfectly frame its approach to the project. The study of the detail and the study of the connection, defined by the materiality and, in a sense, by the artisanal character of the architecture. In Nuno Graça Moura project, we can read the desire to work on the built in a respectful way, interpreting the previous life of the building and of the place. And the new intervention aligns itself with the pre-existing structure, looking for a new configuration and definition of the most important and representative detail of the project. Every detail is new, but its creation is inspired and connected by the existing. His work revealed the aim to maintain the original image of the building or to rediscover it. The second aspect of the Graça Moura way to make architecture is represented by the space research, which is configured to the elaboration of a circulation, of a new circulation that structures the space, intervening on the connection and structuring the different environments. Within its project, there is also the research for a visual connection, both in the organization of the interior, with the environment with different functions in dialogue between them, and in the insertion to the context, through the visual link with the polarities of the surroundings. The interventions are aimed to opening up the gaze more on the landscape, thus creating a connection between the inside and the outside space, and links the surroundings with the cities, with the natural elements, rooting the project in the local reality, rooting the project with the space. The intention is to systematize the new building in all its parts and to link it to the territory, not only in a visual terms, but also in a physical way, through the relationship with the morphology of the place, working directly on terrain and interacting direct with them. The topographical relationship with the place is fundamental for the project and determines the relationship between the plans and the section of the project. Nuno Graça Moura's architecture drew inspiration from the existing building in the area, in material, in construction system, and in colors. They employ and reuse material from the site and from the remains of the existing buildings, with the desire to keep the identity of the place intact. Buildings often attach themselves to the pre-existing structure, like walls or terracing, becoming a new layer, a new stratification of the landscape. In the project of Nuno Graça Moura, we find almost an artisanal character of making architecture, given by the design process and the planning work, often carried out directly on site to check and to verify the project solution. So with great pleasure, I leave the stage to the architect and Professor Nuno Graça Moura. Thank you.
Thank the organization of Mantova Architettura, and with a special thank to Veronica, to Barbara, Luigi, and all my Mantovani friends that I have left in the past years. Unfortunately, in these years that it's not possible to be there due to the state of the world, but I hope in the near future we can all meet together again. So I have named my presentation in a very normal, so to say, way, with no imagination, which is works and projects, a name that I like. I'll show you a little bit the way. This is my office, and that's the way we work. It's quite a small office. We've never been more than 4 people working together. And I like working like that because we get to know all the different parts of the project, and I believe that with a group of 4 people and eventually making partnerships with others, we can do all the projects that we can, and we can also how to say, we can also control all the details of the project. So we live in this very banal work that architects work with by now, work with the models, the computers nowadays, and it's something that I would. This is another photo of my office with mock-ups, old windows from buildings that we are trying to copy during the restoration and so on, spaces for models, thoughts on the walls that we are. So an office is always a place where you should think about the things that you are doing, not only in your projects, but about the most essential things that you are doing, and also eventually, naturally, references that you have, both images, architectural or not. Where am I showing this? I think I am speaking mainly to students, and my experience giving lessons, which is I gave lessons about 15 years ago, and in 3 different countries, and I feel the same problem with students by now is that they only use computers, or they use differently computers in a too expressive way, without getting all the tools that we have by hand. I have nothing against computers. I use computers a lot, but I try to use all the means that we have on our disposal, so that we can turn the project or the problems of a project clearer. And sometimes when I look at younger people, they only use computers, which is something that it's a little bit well, at the end, what's the point is that the project is good or not. But I think that it's a little bit poor when we go too much only in a sort of representation of a project. So to get experimentations, you must try to use lots of materials. I advise always students to use models, because without models don't cheat so much as computers do. Well, this was only a short introduction. Of course, I don't want to give advices to anyone. It's only an opinion that I have. This is my first project. It's not my first project, but it's the first project that I have ever finished. It's like the 20th project I've ever made. So to build one here, you need to make 20, which is normal. So be careful, be prepared for that. Don't get angry with that. It's normal if it's for you the same reason. And these are 30 row houses in Óbidos, which is a medieval city. This is in the outskirts of that city by the sea, near Lisbon. And the client was developing a very big promotional space, and he invited a great group of architects, the most well-known Portuguese architects, also like Eduardo Moura, Nuno Graça, Gonçalo Bueno, Álvaro Cid, and all these Mateus and so on, and also some other architects like David Chipperfield and so on, and also some younger architects like me and others to develop projects that were already defined in a plan, and also obviously a project in a certain way. Obviously not. Sometimes a project begins just in your head, but you will always sooner or later visit the site. And we began visiting the site. The site was like this, so we couldn't see really anything. It was a huge eucalyptus forest that was being torn down because the eucalyptus is not a tree of that site, and it would be turned out into a huge resort. The plan, I must say, although it's not very polite, but the plan was really bad, and the plot that I would have is this one here. I don't know if you see my arrow, which was a strange plot, and in the plan there were six volumes, 3 or 4 stories high. Well, I tried to condense them in only one because I felt somehow a lack of order in this plan, and well, I condensed them all in a building which is, I guess, 220 meters long, so it's a very huge and powerful building, which is my response, mainly eventually a radical response to the lack of order that I could feel in the plan. I had another problem that Caesar was building on the next side of the street. These houses are made by Caesar, so in my first project, if something would go wrong, I would have finished my career in the first project, so it wouldn't be nice. This is the plan of the houses. These are the 30 houses. They're all equal and in groups of 2. And in a very strict line here, the facade is only a wall. And at the end, I didn't know, me and Caesar, we didn't work together on this project. I only got to know his final project when I was showing him mine. And I think we were both satisfied that we made it so different, because the way that I put my longer wall and very strict wall helps Caesar's buildings, this dancing plan that is made of short little adjustments that he was making to the topography, or just little accidents that happened or that he invented, but it's the same. And mine was absolutely the opposite. So it was, if I would do the same as him, it would be a big confusion. The houses are relatively simple. You enter here on a corridor, an open corridor, and then you have 2 houses. And in their space, the rooms are facing the north towards a courtyard, and then the living room and kitchen are facing south towards another courtyard. The courtyard of the rooms is absolutely closed to the street, so that people have some privacy and not that noise that comes from the street. And the courts to the south are open to the common garden here at the south, They are mainly covered, as it is usual in most of the southern countries. These large open spaces with a roof, so you can stay outside, not in the sun. But they are not completely open. They have a great mesh of irregular concrete walls that give an irregular facade, so to say. Another point was that all the architects had the same materials to build with, and it was very nice to see how all with the same materials made difference. I think you see better the differences with the same means than when all the people do what they want. But there were obviously some common rules, like, for example, all the roofs had to be planted, had to be green, and I didn't want that green to be just finishing as a sort of decoration of the roof. So I planted some elements here that the roof could grow up and give some shade to these courtyards here, and that the plants could fall inside, which is something very Portuguese. So at the end, the project is this is the facade to the street. It's a very long wall with openings. On the other side, we see Caesar's houses. I think that these long walls with openings have a lot to do with this sort of elements of the old villages in southern Portugal that are mainly white with openings and open to the inner of the houses. Of course, this image is not a previous reference of the project. It's something that I found later to see if it had something in common. This is the entrance of one of the two groups of houses. You see there the two doors, and it's the opposite view, like Caesar trying to look to my project here, seeing if something is wrong or not. This is a view of the rooms with these courtyards, and you see also that there is a gap in the wall, so that there can grow more plants in there. So here, this was really in the beginning, and when we've mixed here materials, handmade materials like the floors that were made in the southern part of Portugal and also in Morocco, with more industrialized materials like this aluminium frames and so on. To the back part, back to the south part, the rooms open to this courtyard, which is partially opened, and it rains there, and will also be covered with plants. You see that these elements here show this irregular facade and give also a certain how you call it, distance to what's behind it. I didn't want that the houses look like 30 houses side by side. As I've said, for me it was important to give a sense of order to this place. So I wanted a huge building to sit in there, but that also would have the scale of houses. So this facade worked, in my opinion, relatively well, because you couldn't find very well where one house ends and the other one begins. And there are also some entrances for garages, I don't know where, but you could put everything there. So it's not a big problem. And it was really interesting because like 3 or 4 years after that, I bought an office, which is from the wonderful architect here of the 50s, 60s in Porto. And that I obviously knew this building, and it had the same facade as mine, because if you see here on the picture on the left, on the right, you see that when you are in front of these walls, these irregular walls, you see directly towards the outside. When you are on the picture on the left, you are a little bit diagonal. You just see the light coming and you see a wall. That is also what happens here. So when in these houses, you sometimes get to look inside, but then afterwards they turn out to be an abstract black wall, white wall. Sorry. This is the common garden with the lake. It was obliged to make a lake in there because of the valleys and but in the plan the lake had a huge difference of height, and although the world is a little bit crazy, by now the water is still horizontal, so I had to redraw all the plans so that I could make the lake seem more natural. And I also made a sort of a dam with these stones with the holes somewhere in there so that it looks fakely that the water comes from these holes and comes through the valley here. On the top part of this wall, I made the common swimming pool so that it's not too much visible from the houses. And this is one of the endings of the building, trying also to explain that we had an architect working on the plants, on the gardens and so on. But I asked him to just leave it like that because I like this very much. This certain naturality of these natural elements facing the white wall in front of it. Well, this is the first project, and it's not only one project. I will show here other 6 or 7 projects that I made in this resort, here in another situation. Also houses, row houses that are here in a very difficult topographical situation and in a very different topographical situation. The upper part, you enter here through the upper part of the plot. It's the only entrance. And so you enter through the roof of the houses, and the houses somehow repeat the shape of the topography. Well, this repeat is a little bit ambiguous. They try to repeat, and it's not fully repeated. But at the end, the image is that. There's also a lake. This is a natural lake also here at the end, and this is the image. I also made a lower part of a hill, which is this part here. This is a golf course here, a very big golf course, and the upper part of the hill was made by Eduardo. So once again, we were having the same problem. So there was also no rule, no very specific rule of this plan, and I and Eduardo tried to impose a rule on this hill. And well, at the end, you see here the views of the golf course. I don't want to show the houses each one, so I don't have time to. These are the houses, the model houses. So there are about 40 houses or so, and they stand like this. So the middle of the house is the middle of the axis of the garden of the house in front. So it's better with the views, and it also gives you privacy because the house next to your house has a completely blind facade. So the space in between the two houses is a courtyard that here in the beginning is still very open, but it's a courtyard that defines also the house as a closed space, open just to the views on the northwest. There are some islands in the Atlantic that are very beautiful. So what was missing here was the vegetable elements that with time grow, and these are the streets as they look by now. The houses look more natural. I've made also some equipments. This is a garage for all the gardenings of this huge resort. It's a building like 3,000 or 4,000 square meters, I don't remember. Made also with a colleague of mine, Luisa Rosas. She draws jewelry by now. Is a very well-known jewelry designer here in Porto. And well, it was our main concern was try to hide 4,000 square meters building on a slope without being that massive. Otherwise, it would be too much visible, and the scale of the building would be too big. So we put it against the slope, and just with one door and one patio there in front of the door, axial here, standing, and all the garage are facing this patio, and also the offices are being here. They tell me that they work a lot here in the middle, which is something very nice. And they say that they don't call this a garage; they call this is a patio house for them. I draw also the golf course, the golf clubhouse, and a golf clubhouse is a very complex space because it has a lot to do with the outside. Architects usually don't like golf courses, but there are also wonderful examples. Mies van der Rohe trying to draw a wonderful golf course, a golf clubhouse. Cesar also, Barragan in Mexico, and others, Woodson in Denmark, and so on. So there is a little bit prejudice about that, but because usually the plans are bad. But our task is to make them better. It's in a the building is mainly a slab put on some stone walls, and it's facing this slope here towards a lake. So this is the position of the building, and once again it tries to adapt to the topography. Once again, I had another problem. Eduardo was building a huge hotel here, and we didn't know the project because it was being made later. I knew some elements. At the end, it got completely different. And I had the problem that my building could be a little bit too small when compared to it, which could be a problem. From the outside, I got to it's just a wall. This is the street here, and you enter through here, through this covered opening, covered ramp, sorry, and here you open towards two sides. This is towards the end of the golf course, which is very important that the bar faces the end of the golf course. The first hole of the golf course begins on the roof, which was also a premise of the project, and the restaurant and the other part of the bar are facing the lake in here. To the street, it's just a stone wall, and these are the elements from inside where you could face all the surroundings. This is the facade towards the lake. You see that the building is mainly a slab, a very thick slab. It's more or less 140, I guess, or 150. It's the dimensions that were calculated to have grass on top of it and to have all the technical equipments made on top of it. I drew also, I guess, the final project, the tennis club, and got a little bit the same strategy. You don't get imagination to do so many projects in such a few years. The entrance is through here. You climb down the stairs towards a patio, and there's also another service entrance there. It has a wonderful view. You don't see it very well, but it has a beautiful lagoon, the lagoon from Óbidos. And all the building is on a lower height facing this lagoon. So you climb down these stairs, you see all the tennis fields, and there, well, in this picture you don't see anything, but it's when the sky is clear, it's really an amazing view. And here is a space in between outside and inside, which is something very Portuguese. There's these sort of spaces that you just open the door and you are not directly outside. You have spaces in between. And well, towards the tennis fields, it's a little bit like a dam also, only with a big window. There's a veranda here, a little bit higher, so that all the you can see the players playing golf. And I thought also that the plan here on the next mountain there was a little bit confusing, so I thought to end it with the wall that would hold in a certain way this whole amount of constructions that we couldn't control. Well, afterwards, or during these years, I also did two houses for two brothers, one brother and sister. I'll show one of them. They bought together this beautiful plot here near Port, with 50 kilometers away from Port, in Marcaneves, near the church from Caesar. And this plot has had some very specific characteristics. It had been an agricultural plot, as in the nearest part from Porto and all over the Douro River. All the plots are made in platforms, in stone platforms, granite platforms until half of the Douro, and then in the beginning of Spain, it's not granite anymore. It's like, I don't remember the name, schist. And this is one house and this is the other. I'll show you this one. The question is that these walls, as the slope was, the slope has more or less like 80-90 meters in between the river, which you can't see here, and the upper part of the plot. So the houses would be naturally placed close to the entrance, because otherwise you had to go through the whole plot, and it wouldn't be very useful. So the stone walls sometimes have 5 to 6 meters high, and so I thought of this house like being just like in a corner a stone once again that completes this part of a wall that was destroyed, or at least that I invented somehow. So this is the model of the house. You see here, these are the stone walls, the existing stone walls. This is the house, and you see it looks like I was obliged to have two floors, because you couldn't have too big area. And well, the first floor is almost just something that doesn't exist. Is a space between these walls, these concrete walls. Sorry, the ground floor is a space between these walls, and the first floor is an abstract element that faces towards a courtyard. So this is the entrance. You enter through the roof, and you see there a hole. You climb down the stairs. This was very much done in the place, because I was seeing, put this wall a little bit in this direction. We have to save this tree or this stone, also something like that. Stones appeared when we were digging and so on. This is another picture of the entrance stair. And another one. This is also the covered space in front of the door. And you enter here on this plan left. You enter here on the first floor. You have the rooms facing a courtyard and another room. And on the second floor, you have living rooms, also a snooker room and so on. Very big dinner room because the family is big, kitchens and so on. At the end, this was also built with other equipment and so on. And all these elements are facing this big veranda that overlooks the river. So this is the entrance. These are this is one of the rooms. They're all mainly the same. They were covered with this sort of, I don't know how to call it in English, these meshes that opened and create some intimacy. You can't look inside, but from the inside you look very well towards the outside. And the space of this courtyard was also designed on site. This is the lower floor. You climb down the stairs, you have the living room and the space where you get outside and you get the connection to these platforms of, well, this is more a garden, and then the other ones are more agricultural elements. As you will see here, this is all very rough. All the buildings are made with huge stones in a very roughly way. I didn't draw anything. I just draw the position of some walls. Well, I draw the position of this tree and this old stones that we found there that were a small tank. It's like a swimming pool, but only for agricultural reasons. And then this is the house that somehow disappeared because near Porto it rains a lot and nature tries to makes architecture disappear. So this is a study of the walls that I changed a little bit to get some space and to make the house look like one of these natural stone walls that somehow relate to the topography. Here you see the roughly built stone walls. Personally, I like it, but well, it's impossible to draw. Well, this is refurbishment, and we'll mainly talk about refurbishment by now. Although refurbishment is not a special theme, it has eventually no, it has obviously some special characteristics, but mainly I think that all architecture is built over something. Even nature is a construction. So we always build on something that it's already built, even if we build in nature. In this case, we built in ruins of old buildings. So we must take care in the same way as we take care of trees and rocks when we are building in nature. We take care of walls, windows, and something else when we are building somewhere else. This is what I found there. It had been a group of houses, of agricultural houses. Here on the right, this was the main house, and all these here were agricultural buildings. It had been very much destroyed, especially this building, and very well and very much changed. This was what I found. Of course, ruins have this wonderful, how to say, poetry in a certain way. You get a little bit, how to say, you get a little bit nervous when you start destroying things, because for me it looks great. But obviously we had to do something here. The program was to, this is in the place, in the plot of a huge, in a huge plot of a very well-known hotel in northern Portugal. And this is what they call the rural center, which is a 3 or 4 constructions only. So this is what I found. Here in yellow, you'll find the demolitions. they wanted mainly, there was no very big, very well defined program. They wanted mainly rooms that they could rent for the clients of the hotel to make here meetings, parties, and so on. So the one problem was that I had to change the scale of the inner elements. I torn down some walls inside that were these were for 3 or 4 houses together, and turned it into one. This remained to be one agricultural place with 2 donkeys here, and these were cellars and so on. This is the main building that had been changed, and that I speculated a lot about it and invented quite a while. So these are the elevations. And construction begins. Well, you feel a little bit strange when construction begins, because you feel that you are also destroying something, and you must construct something again. But you start working, you make experiences. Should it be painted? Should it be not painted? And so on. We did a lot of research about the windows. Windows are one of the most difficult things to do in refurbishments in architecture, I guess, because the windows in Portugal, and I don't remember very much in Italy, I guess also, but mainly in Portugal, due to our eventually due to our relationship with England, these very natural, these very thin Victorian window frames have also a big importance here in Porto. Well, these are not Victorian frames, of course. These are regular rural frames, but they are always done with the little means that with only the necessary elements that we need. No centimeter is bigger than needed. The problem is that we nowadays, that the tendency that we have is that we need air conditioning, heating, insulation, double glasses, and so on. Here I was very lucky, because the client says, don't care about that, we don't have money to spend on this, and we will only use it in summer. And this works very well in summer. So I was able to just restore the window frames. And I am also from other projects I've made, I am absolutely sure that when you change 1 centimeter in a facade, in a window frame of a facade, you change the whole facade. It looks different, even if it's just one thing. It's like, you know, when someone makes in the morning, a woman makes a little element on his eyes, and when she looks all different, and it's just like 2 millimeters thick. So that happens a little bit with buildings. This is also very strange, because buildings nowadays have such a huge element of huge quantity of things. I was looking here a little bit despair. What's this all about? So many electrical cables and so on. Well, that's what the engineers wanted. Okay, I tried to cover them all. At the end, we did it. This is the building finished. I like this view very much, because you have this door remained. It was not me that invented it, but you have a window in front of, a tree in front of the door, which is something that creates an outside inner space. Something you get outside and you are protected by this tree, and I like it a lot. And these are the inner spaces, all the elements. This is all new, but was made with, so to say, with a grammar of the old elements. I tried to paint it all in different colors, but I wasn't able to. I have some difficulty, must I say, with the colors. But they seem to be very natural, these colors. It's the colors that we found a lot in Portuguese architecture also. This is a corner with a fireplace, and this is more or less the grammar that we needed, that we used all around. So with one detail, I made it all. The only place where I used color is in this kitchen, because it reminded me of my grandmother's house in Douro. It was a beautiful place, the kitchen. It's difficult to describe. And a few years later, I got to know it was painted light blue. And a few years later, I discovered, when I was an architect already, I discovered that it was not for being beautiful or not. It was that the flies, they don't like this color, so they get away. And in kitchens, you don't need any insects. So that's why all over the world, I found villages in this color in Mexico, in Morocco, in Egyptian, everywhere. So it's beautiful that this knowledge, this rural knowledge, also expands around the world. The other building is, well, I invented a little bit. I tried to understand, well, what it had been before it had been changed. And it had been, I guess, a building to dry corn. And the corn, well, it's quite strange, because sometimes when you restore a building or rebuild a building, you need almost to destroy it everywhere. So a little bit of invention also gets inside. These are the man building this elements. Well, I was a little bit well, not shocked. Shocked is too big, but it's missing me the word. But I was trying to understand what I was doing, and I searched for all this concept. Sorry, this is written in Portuguese. For these concepts of restoration, renovation, rehabilitation, refurbishment, and so on, they're all defined. Trying to understand what was I doing, because I was making a refurbishment, a restoration with a little invention. So because I was building new. So my only conclusion is that, as a friend of mine said, well, do the best you can, and at the end you find your concept. And it's a little bit like that. It's very difficult to stick to a concept and to get only through it. Sometimes you have to make small changes. This is the inner space of this space here for some parties. It looks very rough also, and it opens to this grass here. You see the tiles on the ceiling. So this is what these are doors that we copied from old buildings like this one, that let the air inside to draw the corn. And we draw some bathrooms to also get it available to make here something like parties and so on. Bathrooms and the kitchen. We hadn't had so much work, so we by that time, and so we got really excited about every detail. We draw hand draws. We draw lightnings, everything, problems between a tree that was coming through a roof, and well, it seems on purpose, but it's not. It's an accident. And this is the finished house. This is the beginning. This is a picture not from the finished house, but I like to show you the naturality of building a stone, the way that old people build stones, build stairs so naturally. This stair is obviously here because these rocks are here. There's nothing, no secret about it. Well, this is the building in the end. Some parts of the building are made are stone, visible stone. These are the parts that are only agricultural, and the parts that have something inside are painted white, because the painting also protects and disinfects the elements, the inner spaces. And this is the, so to say, the group of houses. And the thing that I like most in this project is that at the end it seems more or less what I had found. Nowadays vegetation has grown and it looks a little bit what I had found before, but in a useful way. So I think that the architect a little bit disappeared. I managed to disappear here with a huge effort. At least I think I did. I don't want to sound arrogant. No, not at all. But you don't see very well what I did and what was already there. This is another path leading to the group of houses. We then found out these columns, and I let them remain there, and also didn't want the garden architect to make any special drawing here. We discussed and we said it's better like this because it seems natural, and I do agree. It seems natural, and this beautiful plant. At the end, what did I do? Well, I worked a lot, but I guess I achieved to do nothing. This is the last project. I think I have still time. If not, Barbara, please interrupt me. This is a project I'm working on by now with Eduardo Moura in Amarante in Portugal. It's quite a polemical project. I left the office of Eduardo in 2002. We are close friends, and since then sometimes we make some projects. Now we are making 2 of them. Let's see if these projects go ahead or not. Amarante is a city very close to Porto, and the area we are working on is this. I hope this red line is visible there, and it has a very old church here and a bridge that was built in the 18th century. And a civic center and a modern market in the 50s from a wonderful architect, Januário Godinho. But things are all a little bit disconnected from each other. Amarante is also a very strange city. No, Portuguese cities are a little bit like this. It's more or less a street like this, and all the rest grows around the street. And I'll try to explain. This was the part that has been during the last century extremely changed. This is the model that we made to understand the process. So we were given the task of readapting the market. At the end, we are restoring the market more or less. This square also, and there's a problem with this market. This market is, I once said that it's the father of the Braga market from Eduardo, and he was quite astonished. Yes, that's true, but I didn't think about that. But it's true, because it's a corridor in the middle of columns with a cover on top of it. But it has a huge problem because it ends there on this slope. So when you are here in this special square, this market is down there, so nobody goes there. It's a dead end in a certain way. But so you see here, this is a picture from the square. When the fair is around the market, you don't see it. Personally, I like this sort of chaotic elements. It happens twice a week that people built around this market. Their tents, and it looks a little bit Arabic or something else. but I like this sort of confusion. And the market also holds, the modern architecture is able to hold this it's so strong that it holds this sort of big confusion. You see here this very big slope that doesn't let people connect directly to the market. And all the pictures around the market here. So this is more or less the atmosphere that we found now. But in the days where you don't find markets, it's mainly dead. It's a car parking. It's really difficult to define it in another way. So it's so dead that people just park cars in there, and even inside the markets, like this in this picture. Also, the square on top of the of this part, so the market is there, but you don't see it very well. Also, this square is really not a square. It's more a car parking and streets to turn around. You don't see it as a civic center. So our project was based on 3 or 4 elements that would be the main concepts of it. The first one was to divide a huge element that exists here, which is a huge wall, the continuation of this one, and try to divide the square in 2 parts. One part that should be more civic, connected to the town hall, which is here, and the old monastery that was defined by that would face this element. The old monastery wasn't made to have such a big square in front of it. Also, this part here were always elements, agricultural grounds for the monastery. We create also a lower platform that continues the fair here, and then that connects all the paths towards the river in this element, and does also connect to the upper part of the square. And then we make a big stair in here that we call an amphitheater, so that the big path that is the main element of the 50s market somehow continues to the square. So this is the project without this letter, so that you understand it better. For us, it seems quite natural. There was also one other element that it had in the past. It had been a very mythical fountain there, the São Gonçalo's fountain, that had been replaced into the facade of the museum here, of this convent that is a museum by now, and that the people think that that had always been there, but it was not. It was more or less on this place. So we thought about replacing the fountain to the lower part of the place. This was obviously very polemical, and the people said that we didn't know anything about the city and so on. But at the end, we proved that it was not true. This is a plan that resumes, in a certain way, the project. This is the existing wall here in blue. It's a very strong wall that was made in the beginning of the 20th century to create this big square, because the town hall and the museum were being installed inside this convent. Our main problem was that the big square had a too big scale to this convent. So we put this line of trees in here to try to divide it, and divided this square into, which also had the advantage of approaching the river, which is here in a visual view towards the monastery. The rest you see here, the plan, it's very clear. The corridor that connects to the place. So this is what happens now underneath here. You see this very big slope, and we turn it into an amphitheater. There is a very well-known music festival here, and we were proposing to make the music festival inside the theater so that the people could listen on this very huge stair. And so here you see the new wall and the new stair that connects to the street, to the inside street of this market, while the actual wall stands more or less like this. So it's a very strong wall. And this is the view from the market up to the street, up to the stair and to the upper part of the square and to the lower part and to the connection to the river and to the new fountain. This is the lower part of the fair, the connection to the river, and also the connection to the church. These are the beautiful elements, these beautiful paths that we want to join with our paths along the river. And it's a very interesting theme that we then discovered a lot of plans, of how it was before, and we so proposed our proposal, and it was very strange, because what we were proposing was more or less what it had existed some centuries before. You see here that this was one of the existing walls, and this was another one. Of course, this building of the market was from the 50s. So this here was not a square. This was an agricultural part of the monastery, and this facade of the monastery was obviously not a facade of the square. So we should try to do a square without with a scale of these elements that could hold this both elements, the square and the facade. This here is what I was telling you about. The main civic center was here. This is a very interesting church, the Church of São Gonçalo here. The old bridge was here, and Amarante was mainly a street, as you see here in this plan. And this is a plan from the end of the 19th century, I guess. You see here the new bridge that had been built in the 18th century, in the end of the 18th century. In the beginning, there was only a small street here in the lower part of the river, but then there was made a bigger bridge that changed obviously the scale of all these elements. But you see here the stairs, and you see here mainly the steps that hold these agricultural columns and gardens of the monastery. So it seems like that our project was returning somehow a little bit to the past. It had also something very special, which is this is also a street a picture before they built this huge wall in here. That this chapel of the church had an extremely big scale, vertical scale, that in the past should be enormous, especially without this bridge. But okay, and it worked very well with the stair that was going to the fountain, and with the scale of these elements in here. This is another picture, and another one. This is by Cartier-Bresson, that was there quite a while. And this is what happened in the beginning of the 20th century. They built a huge wall here, destroying completely the relationship this beautiful relationship that existing towards the river, and this steps here, and the way people lived the river, it was absolutely destroyed by this element. And also it ended here in a very abrupt way. The market was then built in here, so the problem between the market and this element was never solved. This is the investigation we did about the real position of the fountain, and we proved the population that the actual fountain was not the fountain that they think it's a mythical fountain, which they were a little bit shocked about, but it's okay. What we see here is that the chapel, this is what exists by now, that the chapel changed completely the scale, and we still hear the marks of the old stair that existed and that changed, that would give us the ideal scale of this main chapel of the stair of the church. Also today they are still visible here. So our project is mainly this. Here you see the existing situation, this big wall, and these are very rough 3D modelings, only to change a little bit, to see a little bit what we could have made. We wanted to split this wall in two by putting this wall much inner. Also here the destroying of this first part of the wall and rebuilding it in a part more to the inside. And also here this big wall that looks a little bit like the continuation of the fountain, of the bridge. It's a little bit strange. We change it to adapt it better to what it had always been. And this is what exists by now. You see that there's no connection of the fair with the upper part of the square, and this was our proposal, that the fair could be extended there and that it could connect to these beautiful paths of the river, also to the upper part of the church and the bridge, and also here this big stair that would be the amphitheater of the continuation of the inner path of the market. In this photo, we see the way that the civic center of Amarante is by now, in which is a huge confusion. And what we were thinking about is making only a pedestrian way, which in Portugal is always a problem because people like to park their cars in front of their doors. Well, we plan here a line of trees that already exists, so that the convent gets a little bit far away from the center of this square. There was a statue of a very important Portuguese writer, Teixeira de Pascoais, that we put here, which is the first element that you see when you climb down the stairs or when you climb up the stairs. And the ending of this square is the beautiful vegetation that exists over there. This is a view from the other part of the city with all this mess, the cars turning around, and this was what we were planning as a big a square where everything could exist, where, for example, the music festival can also exist. Like in here, we can build stages and so on this. So we think this is a final picture. This building was made with a wonderful relationship with the river. It's a modern building, and it was made due to the height of the floods. It has only shops in here because the height of the flood is more or less this one. This here is an open field, so when the river comes, it goes out. So we've made here this Photoshop element, putting a Venetian gondola here, trying to, it must be beautiful when the flood gets inside. So this was my last picture, and I was talking in the beginning of the thoughts that we have in the office, and this is one of them that I like. That might be a good ending for our conversation here, that success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. It was a sentence made by Sir Winston Churchill, and that's what I advise people to try to do. Keep the enthusiasm. Thank you very much. That was what I had planned to present today.